President Donald Trump's sweeping immigration crackdown has intensified across U.S. cities, with federal agents expanding operations and clashing with communities.
The United States has long been seen as a nation of immigrants. It was built on the promise of a new beginning for all who arrived. The Statue of Liberty itself welcomes the tired and the poor. For centuries, people have sought refuge and opportunity on its shores. This ideal is a powerful part of the American identity. Yet, there is another side to this story in modern times. The debate around illegal immigration raises difficult questions. Many communities voice concerns about its impact. They worry about rising crime, homelessness, and theft. These are complex problems without easy answers for any country. To enforce the nation's laws, a federal agency exists, ICE. But its methods are a source of intense controversy. News reports are often filled with stories of sudden raids at dawn. People are arrested at their workplaces or pulled from cars during traffic stops. These detentions can be abrupt and forceful, often separating families with little warning. This is the harsh reality of immigration enforcement. While these scenes play out across the country, the agency's power is not applied equally everywhere. Some states provide a buffer for immigrant communities, but in others, local governments work hand in hand with federal agents, creating an environment of maximum pressure. Today, we will explore the 9 states where ICE is at its most severe, showing a side of the nation that many rarely see. But before we start, here's a little question to entertain you. In which state was the largest workplace immigration raid in U.S. history? A. Texas. B. Arizona. C. California. D. Mississippi. Share your opinion in the comments and patiently watch this video till the end to find out the truth. Number 10. Texas. Our journey into America's toughest immigration states begins in Texas. The state shares over 1,200 miles of border with Mexico. This unique geography places it at the epicenter of the national debate. As a result, Texas is profoundly affected by the challenges of illegal immigration. Its leaders argue the constant flow of people strains resources and impacts local communities. To understand how this challenge is managed, it is helpful to first look at the system that governs enforcement across the country. The agency at the center of this story is ICE, or Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It is a federal law enforcement body operating under the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. This means its agents follow federal laws, not state directives. They are tasked with enforcing immigration and customs regulations inside the country. The reason for the stark differences in enforcement lies in a complex relationship between federal and local authorities. While ICE is a federal agency, its effectiveness often depends on help from state and local police. Some states choose to limit this partnership. Others, like Texas, have passed laws that demand it. This creates a patchwork of policies where an immigrant's fate can depend heavily on their location. An agency with such a serious mandate naturally raises questions about the people who carry out its work. The hiring process is rigorous and mirrors other federal law enforcement jobs. Candidates must be U.S. citizens and pass extensive background checks. These checks investigate finances, past associations, and criminal history. Applicants also undergo physical fitness tests and psychological evaluations. The intensity of federal enforcement has shifted dramatically between presidential administrations. During the Trump administration, ICE was directed to significantly broaden its priorities. This led to a sharp increase in arrests within the country's interior. In the first fiscal year under the new policies, ICE arrests surged by over 30%. While enforcement priorities have shifted again, that era set a precedent for a more aggressive posture, the effects of which are still felt today. When it comes to this partnership between state and federal power, Texas serves as the nation's most prominent example. The state has become a laboratory for aggressive immigration strategies. It has poured billions of its own taxpayer dollars into a program called Operation Lone Star. This initiative uses the Texas National Guard and state troopers to arrest and deter migrants. This approach is highly unusual for a state government. The financial cost of this state-led strategy is staggering. Since its launch, Operation Lone Star has cost Texas taxpayers many billions of dollars. This amount of spending is larger than the entire annual budget of several state agencies combined. It raises important questions about resource allocation. Proponents of the operation argue this is the necessary price for security. They see it as an investment in the state's stability and safety. However, critics point to a different kind of economic impact. Texas industries like agriculture and construction have historically relied on immigrant labor. Following crackdowns, business owners in these sectors have reported significant labor shortages. Some have struggled to find enough workers to harvest crops or complete projects on time. This creates a dual financial pressure on the state. It spends billions on enforcement, while key industries face economic disruption. This is the complex financial reality behind the political headlines. Beyond broad initiatives, the state has also used specific legislation to assert its authority. A controversial law known as Senate Bill 4 attempts to give local police the authority to arrest people they suspect of crossing the border illegally. This power has historically belonged only to the federal government. The law has been locked in a fierce legal battle since its inception. Yet its existence sends a clear message about the state's intentions. Texas leaders argue they are stepping in where the federal government has failed. They claim their actions are necessary to secure the border and protect residents. Such powerful policies do not exist in a vacuum. They have a tangible impact on people's lives. News reports and watchdog groups have documented harsh realities on the ground. The arrests themselves are often chaotic and intimidating. Under Operation Lone Star, migrants are frequently apprehended in large groups in remote areas by armed troopers. They are then processed and sent to state-run jails on trespassing charges, a system that critics say is designed to be disorienting and punitive. The scrutiny of these enforcement actions often extends to what happens after an arrest, particularly within detention centers. The South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilley is one of the nation's largest. Court filings have described the conditions there as prison-like for families and children. Former residents have spoken of inedible food and poor water quality. Attorneys reported that a 9-year-old boy with autism was in such distress from the environment that he began harming himself. These are civil detention centers, not prisons for convicted criminals. They are meant to hold people awaiting immigration hearings. Taken together, these examples from Texas highlight a deep and often uncomfortable conflict in American values. It pits the desire for law and order against humanitarian concerns. The state's tough stance is popular with many voters who want stricter border control. Yet the methods used raise difficult ethical and legal questions. This tension between security and compassion is at the heart of the national debate. How long have you lived in Texas? Let us know in the comments if you believe the state's approach should be even stricter or if a more compassionate stance is needed. Before we continue, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And now, let's dive in. Number 9. Florida. Leaving Texas, our attention now turns to another southern giant, Florida. For generations, this state has been a primary destination for immigrants. Its shores have welcomed people seeking refuge from Cuba, Haiti, and across Latin America. But recently, Florida has gained a new reputation. It has become a leader in crafting some of the strictest state-level immigration laws in the nation. The centerpiece of this new approach is a law known as Senate Bill 1718. This wide-ranging legislation touches nearly every aspect of an immigrant's life. One of its most severe measures makes it a felony to transport an undocumented person into the state. This could apply to a family member driving a relative to a doctor's appointment. The law also invalidates driver's licenses issued to undocumented immigrants by other states, making travel difficult. Florida's new laws also put significant pressure on businesses and public services. The state now mandates that any company with 25 or more employees use a federal system called E-Verify. This program checks the immigration status of all new hires. Furthermore, hospitals that accept Medicaid are now required to ask patients about their immigration status on intake forms. Supporters say this provides important data. Critics argue it may deter people from seeking necessary medical care. Beyond legislation, the state drew national attention for its high-profile tactics. The governor's administration used state funds to fly migrants from Texas to other parts of the country. One famous instance involved flights to the island of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Another sent people to the capital of California. These actions were presented as a way to protest federal border policies. They were meant to show other states the realities of mass migration. The tactic, however, was met with intense legal and ethical criticism. Lawsuits were immediately filed against the governor's administration. Civil rights groups and attorneys for the migrants alleged that the asylum seekers were lured onto the plains under false pretenses. They claimed the migrants were promised jobs and housing that did not exist. This added a layer of human drama and controversy to the already heated political debate. The economic effects of these policies quickly became a topic of debate. Following the passage of the new law, many news outlets reported an exodus of immigrant workers from the state. Industries vital to Florida's economy, like construction and agriculture, faced sudden labor shortages. Videos circulated online showing empty job sites and unpicked crops. Proponents insist this is a temporary price to pay for enforcing the law. Opponents claim it is a self-inflicted wound to the state's economy. How long have you lived in Florida? Let us know in the comments if you think these strict laws are helping the state or if they have gone too far. Our team needs your help. Subscribe to our channel to help more people learn the truth about current events. And now we move on. Number 8. Arizona. The journey continues into the heart of the American immigration debate, Arizona. To understand this state, one must first understand its geography. Much of its border is the vast and unforgiving Sonoran Desert. For decades, this region has been a scene of humanitarian crisis, with thousands of migrants losing their lives to the brutal heat. For residents, especially those in remote areas and ranchers, the constant flow of people across their land brings a sense of chaos and helplessness. This daily reality created a powerful demand from the public for order and control, setting the stage for an unprecedented government response. In response to this pressure, Arizona unleashed a controversial legal experiment. The state passed laws like SB 1070, which empowered every local police officer to act as an immigration agent. The idea was to create a hostile environment for illegal immigrants, forcing them to leave. Supporters saw this as a necessary step for a state under siege, arguing that if the federal government would not secure the border, Arizona would do it itself. It was a desperate solution for a desperate situation, and it fundamentally changed the nature of policing in the state. However, this new power came at a price, sparking fierce criticism of the methods used. The enforcement that followed was often described as a culture of brute force. Figures like Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio became symbols of this approach, using tactics seen as intentionally humiliating. Mass arrests, public sweeps, and holding individuals in harsh outdoor conditions created a picture not of simple law enforcement, but of a system designed to punish and intimidate. Critics argued that the goal was no longer just deportation, but the public degradation of an entire group of people. The deepest criticism, however, focused on the issue of racial profiling. Opponents of these policies argued that it was impossible for an officer to have reasonable suspicion about someone's immigration status without resorting to profiling based on skin color or language. This created a profound rift in society. Millions of Hispanic residents, many of whom were legal residents or U.S. citizens whose families had lived in Arizona for generations, suddenly felt like suspects in their own homeland. The trust between law enforcement and the community was shattered, creating a lasting legacy of division and fear. How long have you lived in Arizona? Please share in the comments if you believe the state's tough approach is a necessary response to a crisis or an unforgivable violation of its own citizens' rights. Now, please take a moment to hit that like button. It's a small action, but it helps YouTube's algorithm promote our videos to a wider audience. 1/6 kan inridi enter de snow daintust. Number 7. Georgia. Georgia has become a frontline state in America's immigration debate. Atlanta and other cities attract thousands of migrants from Latin America, many working in construction, farming, and restaurants. But their growing numbers also create tensions. Residents worry about overcrowded schools, strained hospitals, and rapid neighborhood changes. These concerns fuel demands for strict enforcement and tighter control. To answer those demands, ICE plays a central role. Georgia is one of the states with 287G agreements, letting county sheriffs act with federal powers. In places like Gwinnett and Cobb, deputies screen every arrest for immigration violations. Supporters say this protects communities from criminals, yet most flagged are caught for minor issues like traffic offenses, raising questions about wasted resources. The state also bans so-called sanctuary policies, forcing all local authorities to work with ICE. This leaves little room for migrant communities to feel safe. Georgia is home to one of ICE's busiest facilities, the Stewart Detention Center in Lumpkin. Thousands are held here awaiting hearings, making it a key hub in the southeast. But the center is infamous for harsh conditions. Reports cite overcrowding, poor food, and inadequate medical care. Several deaths in custody have been tied to neglect, turning Stewart into a national symbol of ICE's failures. These tragedies deepen the sense of fear among immigrant families. The state's economy adds another layer of conflict. Agriculture in Georgia depends heavily on migrant labor. Raids and deportations leave farms without enough workers, forcing crops to rot in the fields. Construction and service industries echo the same shortages. Businesses argue the state spends millions on enforcement while undermining its own workforce. The contradiction is clear. The economy relies on the very people being targeted. Critics also highlight the human toll. Families describe dawn raids where children see parents taken away. Attorneys report detainees pressured into signing papers without knowing their rights. These stories frame ICE not just as a law enforcer, but as an agency that often tears communities apart. Supporters argue such measures are necessary for security, but opponents see cruelty and overreach. Georgia shows the core divide in America's immigration fight. Security and order are valued, yet the price paid in broken families and weakened industries is high. ICE remains a powerful presence, but also one of the most polarizing institutions in the state. How long have you lived in Georgia? Share in the comments if you believe strict enforcement is the only path forward, or if the state has gone too far. Share this video on X and Facebook to help us grow. Every share counts. Number 5. Louisiana. Louisiana may not share a long border with Mexico, but it has become a growing arena in America's immigration conflict. The state's ports, oil industry, and agriculture attract thousands of migrant workers. Many arrive to fill tough jobs in sugarcane fields, seafood processing plants, and construction sites around New Orleans. But this steady flow has sparked frustration among residents. Concerns center on crime, overcrowded housing, and pressure on public schools. For many locals, immigration feels less like opportunity and more like an unsolved problem that shapes daily life. To manage this tension, ICE has built a strong presence in Louisiana. Several counties partner with federal authorities under the 287G program, allowing sheriffs to screen arrested individuals for immigration status. Detention centers like LaSalle and Richwood in northern Louisiana have become key hubs. Supporters of these policies claim they protect communities by removing dangerous offenders. Yet reports show many detainees were stopped for minor violations like broken taillights or expired documents. This raises questions about whether enforcement is focused on true threats or simply casting a wide net. The numbers underline the scale of the system. Louisiana now houses thousands of immigrants awaiting hearings in privately operated detention centers. These facilities are among the largest in the nation, but watchdog groups have documented troubling conditions inside. Complaints describe inadequate medical treatment, spoiled food, and overcrowding. In recent years, several detainees have died in Louisiana centers, sparking lawsuits and national scrutiny. Critics argue the profit-driven model of private prisons encourages longer detentions, not fair treatment. The economic impact is another layer of contradiction. Industries from farming to energy depend heavily on immigrant labor. Seafood plants along the Gulf Coast have struggled to find enough workers during peak seasons. Farmers report crops left unharvested, while contractors in Baton Rouge face project delays. Businesses warn that mass raids and deportations are damaging the state's economy more than protecting it. Still, politicians continue to push strict measures, framing immigration as a threat to local stability. Beyond the economics, civil rights groups describe the human toll of these crackdowns. Families report early morning raids where children watch parents taken away in handcuffs. Attorneys speak of detainees pressured into signing removal papers without understanding the consequences. For immigrant communities, daily life often feels like living under siege. Fear of traffic stops or simple encounters with local police drives many into the shadows, avoiding hospitals, schools, and public services. How long have you lived in Louisiana? Share in the comments if you think tough enforcement is the right solution, or if the state's approach is harming communities more than it helps. Number 4. Alabama. Alabama has long stood out for its tough stance on immigration. Unlike border states, it does not face a constant stream of crossings, but political leaders have made immigration enforcement a central issue. Much of this comes from the state's industries, where migrant labor has grown essential in farming, poultry plants, and construction. Critics inside Alabama argue that the rise in undocumented workers strains schools, public hospitals, and small-town communities. Many residents see this as a threat to local jobs and cultural identity, fueling demands for strong action. In 2011, Alabama passed one of the harshest state immigration laws in the nation, known as HB 56. This legislation made it illegal to rent housing or even give a ride to someone without legal status. Schools were required to check the immigration status of students, and police were empowered to ask about immigration status during routine stops. Supporters framed the law as a necessary shield against federal inaction, but opponents argued it criminalized daily life for thousands of families and created fear even among legal residents. Parts of the law were later struck down in court, but its spirit continues to shape policy. ICE operations in Alabama remain aggressive compared to many other states. Through 287G agreements, local law enforcement works directly with federal agents to identify undocumented individuals. Detention centers in Etowah County and other locations have been used to hold immigrants awaiting hearings. The Etowah facility, in particular, has drawn attention for its bleak conditions. Civil rights reports describe inadequate medical care, harsh isolation practices, and indefinite stays for detainees. These accounts have made Alabama a national example of how immigration enforcement can go beyond simple law and order. Economically, the tough stance has produced contradictions. Alabama's farmers and poultry processors rely heavily on immigrant labor. After the passage of HB 56, many workers fled the state out of fear. Farmers soon reported fields of unpicked crops, and poultry plants faced serious labor shortages. This highlighted the irony of Alabama's approach. Industries that depended on migrants suffered the most under policies meant to drive them away. Even today, businesses warn that labor shortages remain a problem whenever enforcement ramps up. Critics also emphasize the human costs. Families describe dawn raids where parents are taken in front of their children, Attorneys report detainees pressured into signing deportation orders without proper hearings. Churches and community groups have stepped in to provide support, but many immigrants now live in constant fear of traffic stops or workplace checks. The result is a shadow society where thousands of people avoid hospitals, schools, and police out of fear of being exposed. How long have you lived in Alabama? Share in the comments if you believe these strict measures are protecting the state or if they have gone too far and harmed its people. Number 3. Iowa. Iowa might seem far removed from America's southern border, but immigration has become a defining issue here too. The state's economy relies heavily on agriculture, meatpacking, and food processing, industries that draw large numbers of migrant workers. Towns across Iowa have seen rapid demographic shifts as immigrants arrive to fill jobs that many locals avoid. For some residents, this has brought cultural tension, overcrowded housing, and concerns about crime. These fears often overshadow the economic role migrants play in keeping farms and factories running. ICE maintains a strong presence in Iowa, with partnerships that allow local law enforcement to coordinate directly with federal agents. The state has seen several high-profile raids in recent years. One of the largest occurred at a meatpacking plant in Postville, where hundreds of workers were detained in a single sweep. Such operations are justified by ICE as necessary to enforce the law. Supporters argue they remove undocumented individuals who undermine wages and workplace safety. But critics point out that most detainees were ordinary workers, not criminals, and that raids shattered entire communities overnight. Detention facilities across the Midwest, including centers in Iowa, are part of this network. Many detainees are held for weeks or months, awaiting hearings. Reports from advocacy groups describe poor conditions, with limited access to medical care and legal representation. Families are often separated, leaving children behind while parents remain in custody. These stories add to the image of ICE as a force that disrupts daily life rather than securing it. Economically, the impact of enforcement has been severe. When raids take place, meatpacking plants and farms suddenly face labor shortages. Iowa's agricultural sector depends on migrant hands to harvest crops and process livestock. Without them, production slows and costs rise. Business leaders warn that strict enforcement risks driving workers away and harming one of the state's most vital industries. The contradiction is sharp. Iowa needs these workers to sustain its economy, yet the same system treats them as targets. Politically, Iowa has leaned toward tougher policies. State leaders have pushed for laws that force compliance with federal immigration enforcement and punish localities that resist. Supporters claim these measures protect citizens and uphold the law. Opponents argue they create a climate of fear where entire communities live in hiding. Civil rights groups document cases of people stopped for minor traffic violations and funneled into ICE custody. For immigrant families, even small mistakes can lead to life-altering consequences. How long have you lived in Iowa? Share in the comments if you think ICE's aggressive approach is protecting the state, or if it is damaging the communities and industries that keep Iowa alive. Number 2. Oklahoma. Oklahoma is far from the southern border, yet immigration has become one of its most divisive issues. The state's economy relies on agriculture, oil, and manufacturing, sectors that often depend on immigrant labor. In recent years, towns across Oklahoma have seen rapid demographic change. Schools report crowded classrooms, hospitals feel extra strain, and neighborhoods shift in culture. These changes fuel concern among residents who demand stricter enforcement. ICE operations in Oklahoma are closely tied to local law enforcement. Through 287G agreements, sheriffs cooperate directly with federal agents, screening every arrest for immigration status. This means a minor traffic stop can lead to detention. Supporters say this protects the public by removing criminals. Critics respond that most detainees are workers without violent records, and the program spreads fear across entire communities. The state has also seen large workplace raids. Food processing plants and construction sites have been targets of surprise operations, with buses carrying away workers at dawn. Such actions leave families broken and businesses short of staff. Supporters view this as enforcing the law. Opponents argue the raids devastate towns and punish children left without parents. Detention centers in Oklahoma add to the controversy. Advocacy groups describe overcrowding, poor medical care, and detainees pressured into signing removal papers. Lawsuits have highlighted deaths tied to neglect, turning the state into a national example of enforcement gone wrong. The economic impact is another contradiction. Farms, ranches, and oil contractors often struggle to find enough workers. Raids push labor away, leaving crops unharvested and projects delayed. Business owners warn that strict enforcement undermines industries the state depends on. Still, politicians push tougher measures, framing immigration as a cultural and security threat. The human toll remains the sharpest point. Families speak of early morning raids where children see parents taken in handcuffs. Many immigrants avoid hospitals, schools, or even driving to work out of fear of detention. For thousands, life has become a shadow existence shaped by constant risk. Oklahoma's story shows how even a state far from the border becomes a front line in the immigration debate. Supporters believe ICE brings safety and order. Opponents argue it harms families and weakens the economy. The divide ensures the issue will remain unresolved for years. How long have you lived in Oklahoma? Share in the comments if you think strict enforcement is protecting the state, or if it has gone too far. Now it's time to find out the correct answer to the quiz. In which state was the largest workplace immigration raid in U.S. history? A. Texas. B. Arizona. C. California. D. Mississippi. The correct answer is D. Mississippi. Number 1. Mississippi. Mississippi is one of the poorest states in America, yet it has become a front line in the immigration fight. The state's poultry plants, catfish farms, and fields depend heavily on migrant labor. Over time, thousands of workers from Mexico and Central America have arrived to fill jobs locals often avoid. For many residents, this sparked resentment. They point to crowded schools, rising costs for hospitals, and fears about safety. The demand for stronger action has shaped Mississippi's politics and drawn national attention. That attention reached its peak in 2019, when Mississippi became the site of the largest workplace immigration raid in U.S. history. On a single day, ICE agents swept poultry plants across the state, arresting nearly 700 workers. Supporters hailed it as a dramatic step to protect American jobs. Critics countered that most detainees had no criminal records, and the true impact was seen in children left without parents and towns plunged into shock. Images of kids waiting after school with no one to pick them up defined the raid in the public mind. Since then, ICE enforcement has remained aggressive. Several counties participate in 287G agreements, allowing deputies to check immigration status during arrests. Supporters claim this keeps criminals off the streets. Yet watchdogs show that many detainees are caught for minor infractions, like expired documents or traffic stops. Mississippi detention centers, including those run by private operators, have been criticized for overcrowding, poor medical care, and cases of neglect that resulted in deaths. These realities make the state a symbol of harsh enforcement. Economically, the contradiction is stark. Poultry and catfish are central to Mississippi's economy, and immigrant workers are its backbone. After the 2019 raids, plants faced crippling labor shortages, production slowed, and crops went unharvested. Business leaders warned that without migrants, entire industries would collapse. Still, politicians continue to frame immigration as a cultural threat, pushing tougher laws even as industries struggle. The human impact remains heavy. Families describe dawn raids where children see parents taken away in handcuffs. Churches scramble to support those left behind, but fear lingers in every community. Many immigrants avoid hospitals, schools, and public life altogether to stay hidden. Critics argue that ICE's methods punish families far more than they protect communities. Mississippi stands as both a cautionary tale and a defining moment in America's immigration story. It was here that the largest raid took place, shocking the nation and cementing ICE's reputation. To some, this was necessary enforcement of the law. To others, it was a cruel reminder of how deeply divided the country has become. How long have you lived in Mississippi? Share in the comments if you think raids like the one in 2019 keep the state safe, or if they cause more harm than good. Thank you for exploring the hidden corners of the USA with us. Click on the video you see on the screen to check out other hidden discoveries on our channel.